Major funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Perfect Building Maintenance and Murray Hill Properties, SJP Properties, Greenberg Traurig, New York Community Bank. Additional funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, C.B. Richard Ellis, City Investment Fund, Cushman & Wakefield, Eastern Consolidated, XL Realty Advisors, LP, Essex Capital Partners, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, GVA Williams, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Helmsley Spear, Herbert J. Sims and Company, Herrick Feinstein, LLP, Jackson Development Group, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Katsimatidis, Kilroy Metal Products, Marcus N. Millichap, Massey Knackle Realty Services, M&T Bank, Madison Realty Capital, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Muss Development, Palin Enterprises, Rosenthal & Rosenthal, Signature Bank, Sheldrake Organization, Sterling & Sterling, Stephen Napolitano, Stonehenge Partners, Studley, the Moynihan Organization.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller, host of the Stoller Report, Real Estate Trends in the Tri-State Region. You know, I was about to wear rose-colored glasses today because everything is so wonderful. You know, let's see. This year we had Bear Stearns. That was the beginning. Then we go to the second stage. Fannie Mae goes into conservatorship. Then Lehman Brothers. Maybe AIG. You know, and everything is in Surus. This is a time of misery. But how's the residential market doing? What's really happening? So I've assembled this group of 4 distinguished individuals, developers, operators, who will tell my audience the truth of the residential market in New York City. My guests today include Joshua Muss, the chairman of Muss Development, Alan Bell, a principal at the Hudson Companies, Lawrence Kaufman, vice president and head of director of residential development at Apollo Real Estate Advisors, and last but never least, you know, like Josh, Jeff Levine, the chairman of Douglaston Development. So both of you are like the returnees, you know, the Charles Nelson Riley at the Stoller Report. You've been here, with, your life stories have been done. So Josh, the eternal optimist, I may lie about that. What's the market like? I know, what's really happening in the residential market?
Well, I can only talk about our market. It's very hard to conjecture about what other people are doing.
So tell me, I know you got this magnificent property, you know, in Brooklyn that I used to go to. You know, I would try to break in, Jeff, and we couldn't go to Brighton Beach Flats, you know? Okay, called the Oceana, which you have a couple units left.
Well, about a year ago, we decided that we were going to not come down any bit on any of our buildings over there. We had about 40 or 50 apartments left out of 900 approximately. And we felt a good idea to rent them out and wait for better days, and the market is still very strong in Oceana.
So you're renting?
No, we've rented a few apartments, but as they come off rental or as we make them available, we're selling at a very good pace.
Now, what are the rents? I mean, because that's an interesting thing that we'll bring out. So these are condos. What are you renting these condos at? $50 a foot? $45 a foot? What would you say?
It's in that range, but the sales there are ranging about $700 or $800 a square foot, and as I said, we have not had to come down at all.
And then you have this major project, probably the preeminent project in Flushing,
yes.
Sky Park Village.
Skyview Park.
So what's happening there?
Once again, we're selling at a very steady pace. We opened sales about 5.5 months ago. We have about 120 sales. We've sold 16 in August. We've sold another 8 units so far in September. It's a very deep market, a very strong market, and our price is right.
Okay, but isn't it true that on both of those projects, developments, I don't want to call them projects, both of those developments, there's a specific market?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
The Oceana, heavy Russian.
That's correct.
And Flushing, heavy Oriental
we are running about 50-50, a little less than 50-50, Chinese and Korean, with a number of other ethnics as well.
Okay, but you know, one thing, here's the interesting point. Prior to the show, we were talking about the end loan market. These units that you've sold 120 units, you're in contract for 120
Correct.
units. They haven't closed yet.
Correct.
I think these people will close, but I think prior to the show, Lawrence was talking that at Apollo, you have two developments. You have, tell us about the two developments you have in Brooklyn and in the Bronx.
We've got two developments. One is roughly 900 units in East New York. We now call it the Meadowwood at Gateway Complex. We've got about 900 units in the Soundview section of the Bronx, we call Lafayette Estates. And what we've been seeing is month over month, week over week, the banks are changing their underwriting standards. They need higher FICO scores. They're looking for more cash for a down payment. Their debt-income ratio
this is having an effect
stronger.
Because if the consumer can't buy, you can't close on these units.
Absolutely. We have a lot of contracts that have been outstanding. And the time they've been outstanding at some of them are lengthening because the people are going from one bank to another bank because
and what's the price? What do you charge in East New York? Or I mean, they're basically affordable.
These are affordable co-ops and condos. The prices are terrific. They're low 200s for one bedrooms, and then up to the high 2s to low 3s for nice big 3-bedroom apartments, terraces, great views. These are people that want to buy.
First-time homeowners.
First-time homeowners, they want to buy. There are a lot of programs out there to support them. We just need the banks to step up, and when they say they're committed to these areas, to commit themselves and to let these people close.
And now we have the other guy. He's building in that ritzy neighborhood, Williamsburg. I mean, this is the epitome. You got the Edge. I mean, with this fancy sales office, and then you just finished closing on the Zinc. I mean, where do you get these names? Edge, Zinc. He's Riverwalk, okay? Let's talk what's happening at the Edge and the Zinc.
Well, I can tell you very simply that if I don't read the newspapers and I don't watch CNBC, no discredit to GE, I am doing very well. If you watch the news and you read that you can't sell and you can't finance and the world is falling down, you might be pessimistic and not be a buyer. But the reality is the world is not coming to an end. We all live and breathe and have homes that we have to go home and eat. And I believe that there's never been a better time, frankly, for people to buy. And I believe that my projects are exhibiting that. Getting back to your question, Larry, about the current state of the permanent mortgage market, there's no question that the people who are entering into contracts today on Josh's job or my job, the Edge, they're fully cognizant of the fact that the days of the liar loan and the ninja loan are gone, that they have to have real down payments, real income, and in some cases real assets in order to buy a place. So we have educated buyers. And I can tell you that the best part of the market, because I think Josh alluded to the fact that he can speak for the whole market, there are certain markets that are categorically in a lot of trouble.
Okay, so I want to hear which markets are categorically in a lot of trouble.
Okay, I can tell you the suburban environment, whether it's out in Long Island or out in New Jersey, where you have roughly middle-aged or baby boom people who need to buy those type of homes, are afraid of the market, are saving up for their retirements, and are stagnating. On the other hand, the market that I find most appealing is the market for the first-time home buyer, what I will call Generation X and Generation Y, people who were born roughly after 65 is X, and Y, I believe, starts at about 1984. The reality is these people, many of whom have jobs, because there are many people with jobs in New York City, contrary to public opinion.
No. You're telling me that with Lehman and all the layoffs, that this isn't going to have an effect?
Lehman has 25,000 employees worldwide.
Wait a second. But besides that, there are people over there who work.
I am not
there are
saying,
lawyers, the
I'm
financial
not saying
services,
it's wonderful
the law
times.
firms.
I am not saying it's wonderful times. But these first-time home buyers, condo buyers, are in the good position of, A, not having to sell a place to buy a place. They are, for the most part, employed, or they wouldn't be looking for a place to live. And I think they make the ideal buyers for this market, because they're also smart enough to recognize that you make a good buy when things are bad, not when things are good.
You know, over here, the Hudson companies, you got a deal in Roosevelt Island. You have another thing in the Gowanus. You're planning something in Bushwick. What's happening with you? Tell us the truth. I don't, you know, rose color. I'm giving him the rose-colored glasses.
He's got the rose-colored glasses. I know him for a long time. But and you have to be a little bit in this business. But that said, you know, to broad brush it the way you're trying to make it, that the market is terrible. You know,
no, I am not making it.
When people say the market's terrific, I say it's not terrific. When you say it's all terrific, there are lots of sub-markets. There are a lot of different things going on in the market. Here's what I would sum it up. I'd say price point is critical now, because buyers have a lot of choice. Before, the psychology has changed. There's no question about that. Buyers are shopping in a way they didn't shop before. They're not rushing to buy. They're looking at lots of product before they buy. The old stuff is much more important than it used to be. The location, the views, how the product is built, what are the layouts. Is this the kind of apartment that I want to live in and I want to commit to in the future? And is it priced properly? And when you say properly, I mean that, you know, that's a function of what you're being given and where it's located. But, you know, price point, and our philosophy has always been to try to reach the lower segment of the market. We don't get into the ethereal higher reaches of some of the Manhattan marketplace where things are selling for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a square foot. You know, there's still a huge, truth to be told, there's still a huge demand and depth of market on people like Jeff was saying, the first-time home buyer, and people that, you know, life goes on. People get married, people get divorced, people have children, people have to move. Things have to happen. And if you have a product that's at the right place and it's designed the right way and it's priced in the way it should be priced, you know, you're gonna be able to sell. I'm more worried about the mortgage market, because I think that that has to settle down a bit. There's still mortgage money out there. There's no question about that. But I think psychologically people are fearful of what it is. I mean, if you could say good things about what's happened recently, is you know, interest rates are going down. You know, the Treasury is way up and the interest rates are down, and that's going to have a sanguine effect on the market.
Okay. I'm going to ask all four of you, how hard is it to develop a new building? You're in the ground in Roosevelt Island. You're in the ground on your other properties. The zinc is, you know, in fancy Tribeca near the tunnel, which who would ever thought that was going to be a neighborhood? But it's a beautiful building. How about the market today? If you went to a bank, you know, we were talking about the Capital One boys who were here today.
I would not want to bring any project today to a bank. I would suggest, however, that the commonality here is that our price points are at a point where I don't think people think that they're going to come down, even if they were waiting. I think that one of the things you're forgetting also is you're looking at a nutshell of today, which today's the day that WAMU may go down. But
no.
But we're in
14 months, Josh.
But, yeah, well, guess what? What Jeff said is correct. I don't feel anything from the last 14 months. Maybe and it's not because I'm numb. We had other things that were going on. We were on the subway. We're within walking distance of stores. We're not hit by the gas crisis the way has happened elsewhere. If I'm in Long Island, several miles from a train station, and I know that not only do I have to drive every day, or drive to work, God forbid, but I also have to pay for the gas and everything, I would rather come closer to town. The new urban concept of living in town is alive and well in New York City.
But, you know, what's happening with the rental market? I mean, did anybody see the rental market?
The rental market is sustaining itself
you are
very well.
judging those here by the rental market for apartments that are running at $1,500 and $2,000 condominiums, or $70 or $80 a square foot. And yeah, there's going to be softness there. There's going to be shopping there. But lower down, you have people basically who need to live and need to find a place to live.
Okay, let's go to Brooklyn. Okay, not Williamsburg, because Williamsburg, and you know, Jeff is a friend, and I really feel this way because I've been to his properties. You know, he's building a quality property in Williamsburg, probably the best, you know, on the water. Okay, and what you did in the Oceana and what you're doing in Flushing, you know, it's a 100-year reputation. Even though I was not invited to the 100th anniversary, but it's still the 100-year rep. I know.
They went to the wrong place.
Sent to the wrong. Now, but what I'm saying is this. In downtown Brooklyn, right near Muss's Hotel, the Marriott at the Brooklyn Bridge, the best hotel in Brooklyn.
New York City.
In New York City, okay? No, I said Brooklyn. But, you know, what happens is you got this thing called the B, this new condominium. You got the Torin. You got all of these developments, these condos, which are not doing as well as they may have been. Now, can these become rentals? Can you convert truly a condo into a rental?
One thing I will guarantee you, that people will live in these apartments.
Yes.
I am not questioning the need. I think Jeffrey said it before the show. I think the need, New York City needs apartments. It doesn't matter. I think the real question is what the rents can be.
Yeah, but not every place needs apartments. Florida doesn't need apartments.
I'm talking New York City.
Well, that's the point. New York City needs apartments.
Right.
And if you are building at a reasonable price, and if you have no expectations of glamour, you'll be able to rent out or sell your apartments.
Going forward right now, yes, people are concerned about the market. And if you run around with your head cut off, you'll be frightened. But if you take a look at New York City has 8.2 million people. It has a high rate of employment. It has a multi-aspect of employment in many industries, and it has a very limited ability to create housing. We are a series of islands connected by bridges and tunnels. We produce 25,000 units a year. That is hardly replacing the stock that is going to waste.
I'm not disagreeing that all of this housing that's will be absorbed. What I am saying is when somebody builds a rental, a rental of a one-bedroom is 600 square feet. A rental for a condo is 800 square feet. You can't get the same rents that you're trying. So some of these condo deals which were built will not be done. Okay, Larry said before, you own apartments on the Upper West Side. It's taking a little longer to rent them. I mean, they're 50-year-old apartments. They're formerly maybe mixed.
Those are our higher end. I mean, for the most part, we like to think of ourselves in more of the affordable range in Queens and Bronx and Upper Manhattan. But those Upper West Side apartments at the $50 plus rents, those are the ones we're seeing a little bit of slack.
So it's taking a slack on that because people are saying maybe I'll go to Queens or I'll go to Brooklyn. And what about up in the Heights? I mean, you have a big portfolio in Queens and the Heights. What's happening over there?
We have very good demand. Those, what you might call outer areas that everyone's now moving to, those are practically fully rented. As quickly as we can renovate them and put them back online, they are rented.
Well, one thing that's changed since the last recession in New York City is that the so-called stigma of living in the boroughs has basically evaporated. There is no sense that a person can't live in Brooklyn or in Queens or even the Bronx, excuse me. But I'm going to get a heat from
in Williamsburg, they're now calling...
Wait, Staten Island?
Staten Island's a whole different...
Wait a second, you're the king of Staten Island.
Yeah,
you were there since 1965.
That has nothing to do with rentals or apartment buildings. It has to do with stick-built housing.
Right.
In Williamsburg, they're calling the people who come out to Williamsburg from Manhattan the bridge and tunnel people.
That's
correct.
correct.
There's been a change of attitude towards living.
Brooklyn's a destination. There's no question about it. You know.
Is downtown Brooklyn a destination?
Do you know that today?
Oh, come on, let's get this.
Today in the Marriott, there's a convention, a worldwide travel convention. There are approximately 2,000 people who are participating in it, and they come from all over the world. And they would never have come to Brooklyn 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Wait a second.
You know, you've been on the Brooklyn shows. We've talked about Brooklyn in many shows.
We're talking about acceptability of the fact that Manhattan is not the only place to live.
Right. But I think
no, Manhattan still is the first choice for many people. Older people, people who want to pay more, where housing is still more of an ego-driven than a need-driven purchase. On the other hand, for people who want other things out of life, whether it's the social aspects of living in a different school system, of having the types of clubs and cafes and Asian fusion restaurants.
Oh, wait a second. This is not a sale of Williamsburg.
No, I'm not.
Okay. I mean,
well, I thought it was.
Okay. I mean, who's moving to Roosevelt Island? Come on. Who's moving to Roosevelt Island? Which happens to be really Manhattan.
It is Manhattan. That's absolutely true. A whole range of people moved to Roosevelt Island. First of all, a lot of our sales are people who are already on Roosevelt Island, believe it or not, which is actually not surprising since real estate really tends to be amazingly a local business. So people who are already there and are in other housing there want to now own instead of rent are probably the largest segment of our market. People from Queens that want to sell their house and live close to Manhattan and have a different lifestyle. I mean, Roosevelt Island presents something very unique in New York, so I don't even know if it's
what does it present? I mean,
it's so different because you have like this literally like a pastoral setting right across the river from Midtown Manhattan. You're one stop away on the subway. It's for people who want to be close to the action, but in a location, in a lifestyle that's much more peaceful, lots of greenery, lots of places to ride bikes and jog, and yet you're just a tram ride away from being in the very center of the hubbub of Manhattan.
Okay, but let's look at this.
A lot of people coming from out of New York are very attracted to Roosevelt Island because they're not ready to make sort of the move to be in Manhattan, and
they're getting a price conscious. They're not paying the same price.
No question, and price point. No
right.
question.
Yeah, but you know what? It's very interesting. Roosevelt Island, is right next to Long Island City. I mean, the bridge is a quarter of a mile, if that far.
Right.
Long Island City is like the mecca of all these new buildings. How do you think Long Island City is going to do, Jeff?
Well, Long Island City, as a result of something Josh alluded to earlier, with the increased cost of commutation and the increased time constraints of commutation, is a very appealing, much like all of the Brooklyn Queens waterfront, for people who live and work in Manhattan.
Do you think there are going to be some failures of all these new buildings in Long Island City?
Long Island City has one drawback, and I must admit that it's done better than I thought it would. And it's still rather scruffy. There's no downtown.
Well, I can tell you the reason for that. If you look at some of the other areas, whether it's Greenpoint or Williamsburg, forgive me, some of these areas were bedroom communities.
Today's show has been brought to you by The Edge.
No. They were bedroom communities for different people at different times. Neighborhoods evolved. Long Island City was heavily industrial. Yeah. And the warehouse buildings, the industrial buildings, did not lend themselves to residential conversion cost effectively. So it didn't happen as a natural evolution the way some of these other neighborhoods. People moved into tenements and brownstones, rented cheaply, the neighborhoods improved. Long Island City didn't have that going for it. No. It does, however, have proximity, and as time evolves, it will rise in value.
And what about Long Beach? I know I'd like to promote all your projects. What about Long Beach?
Well, Long Beach is a wonderful location. It's 1 hour from the city, on the boardwalk, on the ocean.
High taxes.
Long Island in general has high taxes. There's no question about that. It also has one of the best education systems and good security and a lot of
much higher taxes than if they went to Far Rockaway.
In any event, that's true, but try commuting from Far Rockaway to Manhattan. Having said that, we have a project which we think ultimately on the boardwalk, on the ocean, there are not very many large sites with multifamily mid-rise zoning on the ocean. We believe eventually that will become a very desirable project, but not in this market with the current financing situation.
I mean, there was an article in the Times the other day talking about Rockaway. That the second project of the L&M and Triangle is not being built because of absorption situations, financing.
Well, that's where the mortgage market is really hitting badly in Rockaways.
Why?
Because the housing there has to be very priced right and mortgaged right, and it's hard to qualify.
So where do we see it? We got 4 or 5 minutes left. What do we see over the next 18 months? You've been here.
How about the next 18 hours?
Oh, okay. You can give me the next 18 hours and the next 18 months. I mean, you think there's going to be a lot of change? There's going to be a lot of guys who, as Jeff said before, who weren't developers, who thought they were developers, be out of business?
Listen, in 18 months.
Josh is.
I think they're out of business already. Unless they have enough money to finish what they're doing, the banks are not going to lend anybody that they don't have confidence in. And you asked about mortgage money. I believe that the banks are going to be extremely conservative. And I think that if we had to go into the ground or get our financing 2 months after we did, which was in June of '07, I think we would have had great difficulty. So while there is difficulty now, the fact is that nobody's going to find anything better coming down the road. If a project is priced right, it's going to do well.
Yeah, okay. Alan?
Well, you know, in some ways, by the contraction in lending is going to really stop production to a tremendous extent, especially in outer boroughs. And the 421A change as well already had put most of the nail
Don't worry, we're going to do another show
in the
on that.
coffin. But what's going to happen is, so they're going to be, you know, the inventory is going to be absorbed eventually as time goes along. And sure, you're right, Michael. You lose 40,000, 50,000 jobs on Wall Street. There's going to be an impact in New York City. We're kidding ourselves to think it wouldn't. But you know, this is a big city. I've been around in the 70s and the early 90s, and you know, New York still is fundamentally a very different place.
You know, the show is watched all over the world.
Yeah.
What about Jersey City? You know, we didn't bring it. Do you think Jersey City's? I mean, it has good transportation. Do you think it's going to be affected?
Is that in New Jersey?
I heard you speak once. You know, the sixth borough, Jersey City. What about Jersey City? Do you think it's going to be affected?
I poked around Jersey City. I've never bitten. I've never jumped in. I don't know. You know, you'd say, I mean, price. Things are cheaper there. It's cheaper to build. It's cheaper for land.
But it's like, forgive me, people talk about being in Ohio. You have to live there if you buy there.
Right.
Larry, what's your thoughts?
That's what, you know, echo. We're not in the development market, sort of the affordable, you know, working class housing. And to echo what we were talking about before is, I think we're in a great position. We can provide sort of a well-built, nicely renovated. We build economical. We renovate economically, so we can still give people an affordable rent, and we can bring that out in the market. So Brooklyn will grow, Bronx will grow, you know, the Queens will grow, and still be affordable to the teachers, the firefighters, et cetera.
And you?
I sincerely believe that, as Ken Lewis said in his recent purchase from Bank of America of Merrill Lynch, that's very hard to pick a bottom, but I think if you buy now, in a few years you look back, you will be very satisfied with the purchase you've made of housing, considering the fact that it's going to be more difficult to create housing going forward because of the environment of credit that exists, and I think our economic problems are soon going to be behind us.
You know, needless to say, it's been an interesting show. I'd like to thank all of the people here who are all friends. I'd like to thank Josh Muss, Alan Bell, Larry Kaufman, and last but not least, Jeff Levine. Next week, you know, there's lots of equity, there's other things. We got these guys who are going to say, is there money for equity for deals? See you next week.
Major funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Perfect Building Maintenance and Murray Hill Properties, SJP Properties, Greenberg Traurig, New York Community Bank. Additional funding for these programs has been provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, C.B. Richard Ellis, City Investment Fund, Cushman & Wakefield, Eastern Consolidated, XL Realty Advisors, LP, Essex Capital Partners, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, GVA Williams, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Helmsley Spear, Herbert J. Sims and Company, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Jackson Development Group, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Katzimatidis, Kilroy Metal Products, Marcus N. Millichap, Massey Knackle Realty Services, M&T Bank, Madison Realty Capital, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Muss Development, Palin Enterprises, Rosenthal & Rosenthal, Signature Bank, Sheldrake Organization, Sterling & Sterling, Stephen Napolitano, Stonehenge Partners, Studley, the Moynihan Organization.